On this game chat, we're talking all about Vampire Survivors for Nintendo Switch. So, Vampire Survivors is a time survival game with minimalistic gameplay and roguelike elements, which is interesting because Barry and I don't typically like roguelikes, and here we are playing and reviewing a roguelike. But in this game, it's this top down experience where you mow down thousands and thousands of night creatures and you try to survive until dawn, and you essentially will level up over time. You'll continue to get more weapons and you'll level up those weapons. And eventually, it is sometimes mass chaos on the screen where so many enemies are coming at you. And if you're not prepared, and if you did not level up your character and your weapons in the right way, you will die and you will not make it through. But if you do pick the right weapons the right way and level them up the right way and all those different things, but also level up your character and everything outside of the main campaign. So you're doing all these things that will carry through every time you play it. You may eventually get to the point where you can beat each of these levels. The cool thing is this game also has several DLCs, and we checked out both the Contra DLC and the Castlevania DLC as well. And thanks to the PR company and the developers and publishers of this game for being able to give us this chance to check it out and talk about it and review it for you today. So, Barry, what was your experience with Vampire Survivors?
I never played Vampire Survivors. I played other games like it, and I enjoyed those. I kind of steered clear of Vampire Survivors. I was like, I'm not gonna bother. And the Contra DLC came out, and I was like, oh, I'm still gonna stay away. And then the Castlevania DLC came out, and I was like, that's really pulling at me. And then of course we got review code, so I'm like, all right, fine. This is the universe's way of saying play this game. And I started off in the vanilla version because it's just like let me get the feel of it. And it was okay. It was very minimalistic. The graphics were nothing to write home about in the early levels. I was like, okay, this is, you know, compared to other games of the same genre, this is very, very honed down. I was like, okay, I could deal with that, but it just looks very plain. My wife calls it the most boring game ever, because I sit through 30-minute runs and she just watches waves and waves of enemies die and she's like, what happens? My father looks at it and goes, I don't understand why you like these games. You're just literally running around in a circle for 30 minutes. I say, I can understand that point of view because that's really what you're doing. So the hook to the game isn't necessarily just surviving. There's a lot to unlock. So the base game that you have to get has multiple stages. There's multiple relics in those stages, and each one of those carries over. They unlock permanent items. And one of the things that I didn't do until after I was done with a lot of the other DLC was go back to the main game to beat that, because when you beat that, you can unlock arcanas. And I didn't unlock arcanas until after 30, 40 hours into the game. So I was like, oh, I've been playing this whole game without even using arcanas this whole time. So now, and arcanas are these pretty much these permanent upgrades per that run, and you get 3 or so arcanas depending on your character. Uh, and now I'm in the process of trying to unlock them, which involves staying alive for 30 minutes with a bunch of characters. So now I'm just slowly going through unlocking each of these arcanas, like 20 something arcanas, and I'm trying to unlock them. The reason I'm doing that is not only because it changes the game and it's nice to get them unlocked, but the DLC. So first I did the Contra DLC, and the Contra DLC has the maps in like the standard mode, but there's actually a campaign, and the campaign starts you over. You have to upgrade your stuff, and you're playing with Contra characters. This is cool. Playing through the Contra campaign, there's a bunch of levels, bunch of weapons that are exclusive to Contra. And what's really cool is then you could take those weapons and use them outside of Contra. So I beat the Contra campaign. I did all the achievements. I was like, that was cool. Now we'll do Castlevania. But wait a minute, there's no Castlevania campaign. What the heck? There's only a level. I was really confused. So then I went to the level because I'm like, okay. And I went around and I didn't survive 30 minutes. And I think they actually did an update while it was playing it. So because originally there wasn't a lot of the boss characters, if you will, and the boss characters will drop a chest, and they usually come every 2 minutes to 5 minutes to 7 minutes to 10 minutes like that. But I was noticing there wasn't a lot with Castlevania. There were skulls on the ground, and when you go over those, they pop and these creatures to kill. But there wasn't a lot outside of that. And then there was an update halfway through doing Castlevania, and suddenly there were more of them. And like at 11 minutes, all these enemies start
Mm-hmm.
rushing. That didn't happen before. So I'm
Hmm.
thinking they did something in this to change it. So the first time I played these Castlevania levels, I'm like, it's really hard for me to upgrade my weapons because in additional leveling up, these chests are integral, especially if you get bonus chests, and they're also integral to upgrading weapons. So as I was playing, I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm kind of aimlessly walking around the castle. So I looked up a video explaining how to unlock everything. And I'm like, oh, cool, I'll do this. So the cool thing is the map is a giant map, and there's different keys to unlock different areas of the castle. So like your first goal is to go into the castle to fight the bat, first boss of Castlevania. Kill the bat, you get the key, you can unlock the door, you can progress. And on top of that, you also gain a new warp point because there's warp points because the map is so huge. And then try to get the second key, the third, got all four keys. Okay, cool. Um, then I was like, all right, now what do I do? I go to Dracula's room and there's no one there. What's going on? Where do
Yeah.
I go? What
Yeah.
do I do? So I will continue my Castlevania story, but I want to pass it over to Steve to know what you've done because I've done more than you. So I
Yeah.
want to know what
Yeah.
you've done before.
Yeah. You've basically stopped talking about where I am. And
Oh
so
no.
yeah. So because I sunk so much time in the rest of the game, and you've got, like you said, like 50 hours or something like that in it. I've got like maybe 6 or 7 hours. Um, but yeah, I sunk a lot more time in the regular levels of the game, and so I've only played the DLC probably a couple times each, maybe 3 or 4 times each, maybe at the most. And so yeah, I'm not that far. And I think for Castlevania, like, it wasn't until I think the Contra level was the first time that I found a map, and I was like, "What does it mean that the map's available now? What does that even mean?" And finally, I figured out what it meant, and you can access the map and you see all of it in the menu. But that was probably the time that I realized how big the Castlevania level was, because I was just circling the trees over and over and over again and just doing the same thing that I'd done in the other levels, just trying to survive, trying to beat the enemies, trying to make it till dawn. And I was like, well, I mean, it's kind of cool that it has the different enemies and the world is very similar to Castlevania, blah blah blah. But like, what's the big deal? Like, until I figured out that it's massive compared to what I was actually experiencing. So that's also part of the problem, is the first couple times that I played Castlevania, I was only staying in probably like 5% of the overall map and just circling
It's
those trees over and over and over again. I didn't even know how to get into the trees for a while because it's not obvious. You have to like walk through them
no,
at the
you just
top or
walk through the
bottom.
walls.
But I had no idea in the beginning, and so I was trying to figure that out while trying to escape all the enemies and everything. I will say, back at the beginning of the game, like you talked about your wife saying that it's a boring game. I agree until you get going. Every time
Yes.
you start out a level, it is boring. You are shooting or whatever weapon you have in the beginning, and it's low level. Even after you upgrade all the stuff, outside of the actual level, it's still slow in the beginning, and you're like barely getting these experience points, and eventually it ramps up, and you are not bored anymore at all. But for a while, it's like, okay, let's get it going again. So that's like, it, of the roguelikes that I played, this is a better way of doing it. I enjoy this time. It didn't annoy me at all. But I will say, like, I wish there was a way to get into the game faster at that point. Like, I've leveled up a significant amount of the extra stuff. I should be able to start these levels faster. Like, get me to, like, 5 minutes in rather than starting me at point zero every time. But yeah, I think like the thing that threw me off most of all, which I still don't like about the game, is that you can't control your shots. I thought this was a twin stick shooter so much. I was like, why can it's not shooting at all and I hit every single button. I'm like, what is going on? Nope. You just have an analog stick and that is it. You just walk around and it auto shoots everything. And I had no clue that was the case. And it took me too long to realize that I had no control over my shooting whatsoever.
Well, some
Um,
things you have kind of a control over,
a
like
little
certain
bit.
spells, like they'll be on the ground, and as you move wherever you're going,
Right, but
it'll
you're
work.
not
And
controlling
like
them with another stick
no,
and when they
no, and like the
shoot and everything,
knives
it's all
go in front of
time.
you,
Yeah,
so
totally.
you
and
wherever
and
you
I
face.
think like eventually you do like I got my character that I really really liked. It's like the third or fourth one on the main row. I choose him every time, because I like starting off with certain ones and I get certain weapons every time. I've kind of learned the way that I prefer to play this game, and I go that direction as best as I can for each level. And eventually, it just gets you become like OP at some points if you've done it well. And I just like let my character just sit right there in the middle, and all the things are being attracted to it, and he's shooting like crazy, and all the enemies are just getting mowed over, and I'm just like, oh, I guess I can set down my controller and I can you know
Yep.
like eat something while I'm waiting, because it's massive what's going on, all the things. And that's when I realized that I was really impressed with the Nintendo Switch being able to handle all of those enemies, all those shots, and everything, all without real. There's a couple times that it slowed down, but for the most part, it handled it pretty well.
So let me ask you this then: you only use like the character you're using, even when playing the Castlevania. Like that's the only character you
Yeah,
use. So I'm gonna get into slightly spoiler territory. I know you don't care as much about spoilers at this point, but just for those listening, if this sounds good to you already, and I'm sure if you've already played Vampire Survivors or you know about the game, you know whether it's your cup of tea. But I'm just letting you know, like I'm gonna do a little bit of a spoiler for Unlocks, just to give the scope of the Castlevania DLC. So if you don't want to be spoiled, like skip ahead towards the end. Um, so if you only pick a standard character, you can get the gate keys in Castlevania. You can explore the map, and that's about all you can do. So there are 20 characters from Castlevania's lore to play, and you get one by default. That's unlocked. You start with one. You have to use that one, level his weapon up, survive for a certain amount of time, or beat a certain enemy. So one of the spawn bosses with that character that will unlock another character and their weapon. And you have to do this for all 20 characters. The 20th character that you get is the one that you actually bring to Dracula for Dracula to actually spawn. When this happens, something amazing happens instead that I can spoil right now if you want in recording. Otherwise, I will just say leave it at that.
we can just leave it at that for fun.
Leave it at that. Something amazing happens. But after that amazing event that happens, the game pretty much says you think you're done with this DLC. You got all 20 characters. You got all the weapons unlocked. You haven't touched half of it yet. Another 20 characters appear on your screen. The map gets bigger with
That's
3 new keys, a bunch of new hidden areas, a bunch of new bosses. It just goes insane. So now you have all these new characters, new weapons to unlock. When you get all those, then there's even more that will appear that you need to use certain arcana, which is why I'm getting the arcana now with certain characters to unlock even more characters. It's like there's
wow.
like 50 or 60 Castlevania characters. It's huge.
That's crazy.
It is insane the amount of content for the price. It is insane.
Wow.
Like you haven't touched anything of that
That's
DLC.
nuts. Wow. Yeah, I had no idea. Um,
Like, the
man,
video of unlocking everything is, like, 40 something minutes, and that's quickly, like, get this survive with this character for 15 minutes, and also get its evolve its weapon to unlock it, and then for this next character, you're gonna wanna do this, and talking that quickly, and it's still, like, 40 something minutes to unlock everything. One of the hidden weapons in it, which isn't really a spoiler, but it's something that unlocks afterwards, is the clock tower, which is famous for Castlevania, where there's four parts to the clock tower. There's like the swinging pendulum, there's the pedestals that go up and down, there's the gears, and of course the Medusa heads, which are part of the clock tower level. You have to, if you unlock, like, level them all up to 9 to the max level, and you can evolve them into the clock tower, and you have a giant swinging pendulum the whole time. You have tons of Medusa heads, you have elevators going up and down, you've got gears going on, like, it's insanity.
wow, wow,
Like, there's so much to this game.
that's nuts. Well, I think that you kind of alluded to it. Like, we'll step away from spoilers now.
Yeah.
But one of the things you kind of alluded to a couple of different points when you're talking is you didn't know what to do or you didn't know how to do it, and sometimes you had to refer to other things. And that is one downside of the game is there's no hand holding whatsoever.
Well,
Like
there
I had no
is.
idea what I was
There
doing.
is. There is character if you go onto the character select screen, there's blanked out characters, and it tells you for the most part how to unlock it, evolve this weapon, survive.
Right,
So it does tell
right.
you. I was using a video just for it to be easier, like do this step A, B, C, D, as opposed to me checking through all of them. What's next? What's
Totally,
next? I was
totally.
doing it for time reasons, but they do tell you.
I mean, more basic than that. Like, I didn't know, like, as you start playing, you get these options to, like, choose things. I have no idea what those things are. So it's a lot of
Oh,
trial and error in the beginning to
yes.
learn those things. And so in that way, there's no hand holding. Like you try it out. You like, is this weapon good to get now? I've got a couple of them that I thought would be good in the beginning. I'm like, oh nope, that is a weapon to be saved for later. I am not using
Yep.
that at the very beginning. I need to choose a different one. I need to use these upgrades later. All those different things are a lot of trial and error and trying to figure that out. And even like you said, like some of those the arcanas, like it doesn't really like it explains it, but you're not fully explaining. You're like, do I need these? I'm not really sure. And so you waited till later. I went ahead and started using them right away. But
Well, I
yeah.
didn't unlock them. That's the thing,
Oh,
is
you
I
just
didn't
didn't unlock them.
I didn't know because I only did like I got to like I think the milk dairy farm or whatever,
Hmm.
and I stopped at that level because I lost. So that's when I was like, well, now I'm
Uh,
going to take a break and do Contra, and I beat Contra, and then I went to
got it.
Castlevania, and then I just stayed with Castlevania. So I didn't touch it at that point. I didn't go back until after
Okay.
I unlocked everything, and I had to get Arcanas. And I'm like,
Got
all
it.
right, well, let me go back and then get like the unlock Arcanas, get the yellow sign, get like all these other bonus items and stuff. And start doing all these other bonus levels and hidden levels, and I was like, oh, there's so much more to this game
Yeah,
because there is a lot to this game.
there
Um,
is.
now, one thing that does help is there's I don't know if it's an unlock. I think it's an unlock. One of the relics you can get that gives you a list of like all the different weapons,
Mm.
and it will show you what you need to evolve it only after you've done it. So it's trial and error. I definitely recommend looking on Google how to evolve this weapon to find out what, because every weapon has the main weapon, but then if you have a sub weapon, because there's sub weapons or another main weapon, you max those out and beat one of these bosses, you get a chest and you will evolve that weapon. Some of these
Mhm.
weapons can even go further. The weapon evolves are awesome because they
Mhm.
they change the game.
Yeah.
There's other there's other modifiers. I don't know if you unlock, there's like hyper mode you can unlock where it's like 15 minutes instead of 30, but everything comes crazier and faster,
Mm.
which might be more your speed. There's also a slower mode where you have a little bit more time. There's a mode where you can unlock the caps and weapons no longer cap at 9. You can literally go get whatever weapon you want and just keep going with it, doing massive, massive amounts of
Nice.
damages. And that's one of the things is when you hit 30 minutes, the Reaper appears
Yep.
and will kill you.
Which totally
Did you?
threw me off in the beginning. Like when it first happened, I'm like, "What? I can't. I didn't even get a chance to beat him." No, you don't. You don't get a chance to beat him.
Oh no, you do, just not the first time.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So,
I was like,
so
"There's nothing I could
did,
do."
did you did you survive at all with the Reaper?
No, even in my like, I've had times where I was reviving, and I haven't beat him. No.
So I had one run where I had the sprint shoes and I had the wings fully unlocked, so I was blazing. I had
Yeah.
defensive stuff, and for some reason, I was able to stay just a little bit ahead of him. And I
Ah.
was running it fast, and I was running in circles. And what happens is after like 30 seconds, another Reaper appears. So I survived for 20 minutes past it. I was like 50 minutes on the timer before it finally got me
Did you get
and
like
killed.
another
And
Reaper, another Reaper, another Reaper?
oh yeah. So I wound up killing them because if you kill the Reaper, you actually unlock the Reaper as a playable character.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't know if I did it. I was waiting for a message and I was just running
Yeah.
around and I'm like, I don't know if I did it or not. And then when I checked at the end, I had like a stupid amount of Reapers and I wound up killing like half of them before. And of course, I got the character unlock and I was like, damn, that was insane. But they really try and kill you. Like, oh, this one hasn't killed you yet.
Yeah.
No, we're going to keep throwing it. So I got 20
Ah.
minutes past
So
it
I gotta
before
get
they.
faster. That's what it is.
So and that doesn't always work. It just happened to work in this one level with this one character, I guess, and I slowed him down somehow. And it's just because there's some weapons that will slow down your
Okay.
opponent, and
Yeah.
it's just crazy what you can do, and it depends on what you draw. So there is the more weapons you unlock, it's a double-edged sword because they could appear in your pool, and you have options to banish. You can unlock
Mhm.
banishes, and you can banish a
Yep.
weapon; it won't appear in your run. You can unlock skips, and then there's actually you can unlock the ability to turn on and off weapons that you want, which is
Mhm.
really cool. When you have a lot, you just want to pick and choose what you want. Those are expensive.
Hmm.
Those are like 25,000 plus coins a piece, and you can get like 40 of them to unlock. That's a lot. And some characters are like 300,000 gold to unlock. Like some of the hidden characters. I'm like, oh
Hmm.
my god, like there's so much money farming needed in this game. It's
Yeah.
insane. But it's crazy. The game just keeps going.
It does. It does. Well, I think that's a good time to point out that this game is $4.99 for the Nintendo Switch. $4.99. That's right. It's $5 for this kind of content. And if you want more, you can have DLC. There are 5 DLC packs that are out right now. The Vampire Survivors Legacy of Moonspell is $1.99. Tides of Foscari is $1.99. Emergency Meeting is $2.49. And then the Operation Guns, which is the Contra one, is $2.49, and the Ode to Castlevania is $3.99. So if you wanted all of it, it'd still be like less. I haven't done the math, but is that less, that's still less than $20, I think.
Less than 20
Um,
bucks, yeah.
so like all of that content in the base game for $5, and especially this DLC for just a couple dollars more. Barry, I don't think I have to ask, but I have to ask for the sake of the video. Do you recommend Vampire Survivors?
Yeah, honestly, I do. Emergency Meeting, by the way, is Among Us. So if you're an Among
Oh,
Us fan, it's actually an Among Us. So you get the characters from Among Us, you get the weapons and stuff from Among Us and stuff. So it's another crossover, which is why it's a little more expensive than the others. I did buy them all on sale. I'm like, screw it up. At that price, I'm just gonna grab them. But yeah, I do think that I'm not gonna say it's the best one of these games because I think other games do the content better because this this walked so other games can run. But the Contra DLC and especially the Castlevania DLC in terms of content, wow, like it's well worth the money. Like I've put like I said 50 60 hours in already for under $20, and I still haven't even touched the other DLCs other than Contra and Castlevania. I just got them because they were on sale for like $1 and I was like for $1 I'm going to grab them. So like I haven't done any of those campaigns. There's actually campaigns for those ones too. I haven't done any of them. I'm still just trying to unlock everything of Castlevania. There's so much to this game. I'm sure there'll be more. But even if there's not, it doesn't matter. I think if this sounds interesting to you, if you like this kind of content, um, it's absolutely worth it. If it's on sale, even better. But even at $5, try the base game, see what you think. But just know, like the Contra and the Castlevania, definitely change up the game. And Castlevania itself is just one giant map that just keeps going. But keep in mind that while I did do a lot of time, it is also very repetitive. You're doing the same thing. I got to get this character up to level 50. I got to get this character up down to level 50, and this character up to 50. So now you're going to spend, an hour and a half doing 3 runs getting these characters up to 50, and that's what you're doing, whatever
Mm.
map you choose. So there is going to be that level of tedium and monotony. So you could space it out, play it like out 30 minutes at a time, cool, whatever you want to do. But just keep a note that while there is a lot of content, it's also a lot of repetitive content. So I do have to preface that. But I did have a lot of fun with it, and I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I do like. I think it's for $5. Why not? Like, unless you just hate this kind of a genre, then okay, avoid it. But if this seems at least somewhat interesting for $5, it's worth it to try it out. And I think you're gonna have some fun with it for sure. You're definitely gonna get your money's worth. And here's the other thing we didn't talk about is there's also multiplayer. So you can play up to 4 players in it as well, which I didn't. I don't. Probably
I
Barry,
didn't
you played
either.
single player as well, so I can only imagine if you get 4 players in there, how chaotic it can be, but also maybe even adding to the fun, and potentially you're unlocking things even faster. I'm not sure, but from this
Yeah,
just
potentially.
the single player point of view alone, it's worth the money. But knowing that you can play up to 4 players, that just adds even more to the value as well, and the DLC adds even more to the value. I see no reason why not to recommend this game. So huge thanks to Ponkel, the developer and publisher of this game, for allowing us to check it out and talk about it today. And if you enjoy these kind of videos, be sure to subscribe to us here on YouTube for our game chats, our gameplay videos, game industry interviews, and our podcast, and so much more. Also, be sure to check out NintendoFuse.com as well. And Barry, thanks so much for joining me today to talk about Vampire Survivors on Nintendo Switch.